What's up, friends? Welcome to the recap. Today we are talking about TikTok might not actually get banned, Netanyahu is not abiding by his own ceasefire deal, the LA fires are still out of control, and Pete Hegseth is worse than you think. Roll the stinger. Boop.
I love the boop. I think the boop really adds it.
I had to roll the stinger.
Like a level of professionalism when you add in a boop.
I forgot that I'm the producer and the person doing the talking, so I had to move my arm and hit the button to roll that stinger. So, hello, friends. Happy Friday to all of you. It is me, Tim Whitaker, with my co-host, April LaJoy. Welcome to the recap. We try and cover major current issues from a biblical perspective.
No.
Well, we are Christians. But we're not like your Christian Nationalist Christians. We're more like, you know, the ones that want to love your neighbor and not storm Capitol buildings.
Yeah. Shout out to Christina Hart for that great t-shirt.
I agree. Absolutely. April, good to see you as always. Your kids are back to school today after what you said, a month of being home from the winter storms?
I think it ends up being, just about a month because we have that snowstorm. We still probably have a good 8 inches of snow because it re-snowed over like 2 inches of ice. Anyway, it was just quite the storm. So we still have it's just snow out there. But yeah, my kids, they were supposed to go back last Tuesday, a week from this past Tuesday. That week they just did snow days, so nothing. And then this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had to homeschool them. They gave us assignments and stuff.
Oof.
I'm not cut out for that. I've realized.
I was homeschooled. Were you homeschooled?
I was.
Same.
Yeah.
Yep. 9 years.
I was homeschooled till 7th grade.
Oh,
went to
I'm
school for 7th grade. Nope. But then I was homeschooled again for 8th grade. And then I went back to school for 9th grade and 10th grade. And then I was homeschooled 11th grade. And then I went to school senior year.
My head hurts. Yeah,
I have experienced, though, every type of schooling. Homeschool, Christian private school, and public school.
Okay, see, I never had the public school thing. I used to dream about going to public school. I was such a social butterfly as a kid. I would have actual dreams of attending public school. Were your dreams
to save the lost?
No, they were just to be there. I was just so curious, what's inside that building? What's it like to wake up and go to school with other kids? That's what I thought about.
Because in the church, a lot of times public school's demonized as this really scary place.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's literally they call it Satan's playground.
It was an indoctrination factory.
Yeah.
Obviously. Well, I went to, after 9th grade, I convinced my parents to let me go to a small private school where I do want to brag about this. I did graduate top 5 in my class.
Wow.
Yes.
Were there 5 people in the class?
There were 6. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. There were 6. I graduated. And it was a Korean boarding school as well. So half of my class lived in Korea. And so there's no most people who went to high school have 5-year reunion, 10-year reunion. I have never had a reunion because I was the only guy in my class. 3 of them were from Korea, which I'm pretty sure that they're all back there now. And the other 2 disappeared off the face of the earth. I haven't heard from them since I graduated. So I have no reunion at all, ever.
That's a very unique experience. My class was a class of 33.
That's not bad.
Or 36.
That's 5 times the size of mine.
Yeah, it was huge. You could barely get to know anybody.
It was massive. How could you do it? Well, April, you and I, we've announced this.
Yes.
We're going to be starting our own show. We're going to spin off this weekly recap under the new Evangelicals YouTube channel and really not go off on our own away from TNE. I mean, I started TNE, so that's impossible. But we're going to become a show underneath the umbrella of a TNE media strategy. And I am so ready to do this, but dang it, I cannot think of a good name. And I know you and I keep talking about this every day. What are we going to name this show? And
we thought we've had one we liked, and then you polled people online and they were like, hate it.
They hated it. I pride myself on having the finger on the pulse of my community or our community, however you want to phrase that. And I'm thinking, this is a good name. They overwhelmingly were like, meh. Are you kidding me? Yeah, we were going to call it separate show, The Recap with Tim and April. I think that sounds nice. But maybe for them it wasn't creative enough.
It's an easy transition.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple other names. I did an Instagram story thing, which, by the way, if you want to follow more of our work, follow us on Instagram at the New Evangelicals. Some were okay. Some were just really weird. I mean, we have one like Christ-like heretics. No. Fear not, but vote. No. There was one I liked, though. It was The Tea with Tim and April. That isn't bad. But like a lot of these names,
I saw I think someone wrote like T&E. There were a couple that were really clever. Like, wouldn't it be good for our show name, but made me laugh. Like
Morning Brew Evangelicals. That's funny.
One was, so wit, WHIT, a wit a bit of joy.
I'm
Tim
looking
Whitaker,
at that one.
And
a wit a bit of joy.
A wit a bit of joy.
Clever, but never going to happen.
Oh, I know, but now I want to just always be like, you know what? We just bring a little bit of joy.
you can say that, yeah. Between that and Timothy, someone said the Timothée Chalamet show. No, not doing that. So, I mean, we're still thinking, friends, and honestly, I know it sounds dumb, but you need to have a good show name. One of the options I really am considering, I know you are too, April, is let's just call it the Tim and April show. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's our names, the show.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these like other podcaster types and commentators, they just call it their name. The Brian Tyler Cohen show, David Pakman show, etc. You know, the Michael Knowles show,
Ben Shapiro
Matt Walsh
show,
the
the
Ben
Candace
Shapiro
Owens
show. Yeah. So the Tim and April show. I think that makes the most sense. Another couple options we heard was Double Take. This week with Tim and April. Everything's going to end with Tim and April. So I don't know, friends. We do read the comments. If you have some more suggestions you want to throw in, feel free. But we are still working through that very important piece of the puzzle. And then once we have that, we'll get the branding together, and then we start the YouTube channel and start promoting, and we launch on podcasts. And I'm excited because we're going to do more of these, but they're going to be in smaller doses. I know like the main video that we record is like an hour and a half. We're trying to cover so many important stories in one sitting. This will give us the ability to record more throughout the week and give you a 15-20 minute episode, you know, twice a week or 3 times a week, instead of doing one that's an hour and a half. So that is the plan.
And when we are recording more often, we're less likely to miss bigger news as well. Like last week, we recorded literally like we ended our recording, and then I opened my phone and saw the news of what was going on in LA with the fires.
Yeah.
And so we didn't get to talk about it last week.
Right. Well, why don't we start by talking about TikTok getting banned, potentially, but maybe not. Maybe not. So this is kind of a developing story. And again, we don't know what's going to happen between when we record this and when we release it, because it's so volatile. But do you want to kind of share? So right now, as of this moment, TikTok is set to be banned in the U.S.
on
in
Sunday.
4 days? Sunday. And
Sunday, also, January 19th.
April, the reason why this is even a bigger deal for me, and I'm a creator on TikTok for sure, so that is a big piece of the puzzle. But also, you mentioned that CapCut, which is the editing software that many people, including myself, use to make reels and videos, that might get banned too?
Yeah, so what they're reporting is that in this bill, anything that is owned by ByteDance will also be banned. So CapCut falls into that.
If CapCut goes away, I will storm the Capitol myself.
I think Lemon8, which is a platform some people are going to in lieu of the TikTok ban, I think that's also owned by ByteDance.
Okay.
So that would go as well. But yeah, that really sucks. Also, I do most of my editing within the TikTok app. Like I've tried editing in Reels, and it sucks. Like it's
horrible.
It's
horrible.
And
this is like inside speak for creators, but Instagram Reels editor is the worst. It's the worst.
It's awful.
It's terrible.
Like why?
No, for sure.
Honestly, though, like if American doesn't want Americans to be pissed that they're banning TikTok, then have a social media platform that's actually good.
Well, and Meta, as we know, is like deregulating themselves in the name of free speech, which is a whole different conversation that we're following. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But I mean, so it looks like, here's what I'm seeing right in news. This is according to USA Today. Lawmakers are urging Biden to extend the January 19th deadline for TikTok ban. And I think part of this is because the Supreme Court hasn't ruled officially yet. So right now the logic seems to be, hey, President Biden, you have the power to extend this date. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled yet. We should at least wait for their ruling before we decide, which would be great. And friends, there's a really good segment on John Oliver talking about TikTok and the ban in depth. And essentially, one of the big reasons for this ban that is the hinge, or like, the main the cornerstone, is they're saying that we can't trust the Chinese government. We can't trust ByteDance with our data. And John Oliver makes the point that Facebook and Google are also massive data harvesting machines. I mean, everything now is buying data and selling data. That's how they make money. And it is very frustrating to watch lawmakers get all riled up about an app that is owned by ByteDance, not even by China, that has, by the way, its own version for the U.S. That's not even the Chinese version. And they're like, well, this is for the sake of privacy and data protection for consumers. And then you're not holding Meta or Google to the same standard.
Right.
It's very frustrating.
Well, and the TikTok CEO is Singaporean. He's not even Chinese. He's never been Chinese.
That was
He's
from
whole Singapore.
Yes, right, exactly. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I did say, April, last time, and I'm not sure if we can pull this clip. If we can, we'll insert it. But I did say when we talked about this a few weeks ago, if they banned CapCut,
I thought about it.
I would storm the Capitol building, and I stand by it. I will hold my sign, running like William Wallace in Braveheart, screaming freedom as I advocate for my CapCut app to be allowed on my phone.
I know. TikTok, listen, I have done an extensive amount of research to figure out what the national security threat is. I'm like, well, maybe there's just something I don't know. And there's a good chance that the government is not revealing some information that maybe if we knew, we'd be like, oh yeah, that's bad. But in every report that I've seen, I don't know why it matters if China has my data and if they know like what makes me laugh. Like, I don't, if Meta knows it, like I've given way more information to Meta between the,
totally.
Facebook,
my Facebook, my whole life.
Instagram, Threads.
I have 15 years of pictures on Facebook, at least, maybe 20, from when I was like 15 to now. They have everything. And they also have my deconstruction story. They have all of my posts. They have all of my church life. They have my family life. It's all there. I mean, Facebook has it all.
Right. And I get that. Like, I understand maybe government employees shouldn't have TikTok on their government phone. Like, that makes sense. But why take it away from everyone? Like, 180 million Americans use TikTok. And it really pisses me off that the one thing that is getting bipartisan support isn't saving children from being shot in schools, isn't bringing a ceasefire for the Palestinians, isn't universal health care or just having people be able to afford their health insurance. It's a TikTok. It's an app that millions and millions of Americans love.
Yep. No, I know. I mean, and by the way, just to play devil's advocate, where's my freedom of speech? Why can't I speak freely on that platform? I mean, isn't this the logic, right, from like so many of these free speech warriors? I mean, and Democrats I know support this bill too, so it's not just that. But like I do think, well, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not sure how the right-wing Christian nationalists feel about TikTok being banned. I think that
I really haven't
Trump
seen
says
them say anything
they're
one
going
way
to
or
do.
the other.
And I think Trump has expressed, and I could be wrong on this, so don't hold me to it.
You're right. He says he wants to try to save TikTok.
Okay, so I would agree with Trump on this, like 100%.
I would
like,
too.
Great. Yes, great. Yes, future President Trump. Absolutely, let's save TikTok because my free speech matters, right? Right, Trump? Right, we agree on this. And I want free speech on TikTok.
Trump asked the Supreme Court to rule to a delay because really we just need more time. And honestly, this is just terrible timing. You don't want Joe Biden's last thing in office. Like, that's his last day in office to be taking something away that Americans love.
100%.
So I think Biden's now trying to get it extended and Trump says that he wants to do something once he's in office. But I will say one of my favorite things that's come from this potential ban. So I know you're not on TikTok a lot. You don't really scroll TikTok.
I don't scroll TikTok. No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't scroll it.
I got my start on TikTok. So I
You're TikTok
feel
famous.
yeah, like I mean that's where it all began for me. I downloaded it during the pandemic when we were all in quarantine. I initially started making funny family mom videos before I switched into more Christian nationalism funny stuff. And there's nothing like TikTok. Like TikTok actually changed my life in a way that is like unqualifiable. It's there's a certain type of humor that is only TikTok humor. Like I can post a video on TikTok that does amazing there. Everyone's laughing. Everybody gets it. And you post it on Reels and people are like, you're an idiot. Like, no. Like
You're so stupid.
But okay, so there's been several things that have happened on the TikTok app that you will not get unless you are in like its own culture in a way.
Wait, its own
and
cult?
One thing that I love about TikTok is how petty we are. And the way that we can laugh about things you probably shouldn't laugh about. For instance, with the TikTok ban looming, there are thousands of videos of both Americans and Chinese people saying goodbye. And they're saying like saying farewell to my Chinese spy. And that's like these emotional embrace. And they're like, my Chinese spy knows me better than I know myself. And I feel that like the TikTok algorithm, like that TikTok algorithm knows me better than any other. I don't know how they do it, but it's brilliant. And no other app
probably
has
witchcraft.
Come close. Huh?
Probably witchcraft.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, one thing that happened this week that falls into the pettiness is that a bunch of TikTok users found out about an app called Red Note, which is also owned by China. And it's like the actual Chinese version of TikTok. Like TikTok's in China too. Right. But Red Note is like, it is a Chinese app. It's like vast majority Chinese users. So the app is in Mandarin pretty much. And so I don't know who came up with the idea, but I don't know how many people did it, but thousands and thousands of TikTok users downloaded Red Note, started posting on Red Note. And now a bunch of Chinese people who speak Mandarin, and we're all using like bilingual captions to talk to each other. And they're so nice. They're just like, oh, we welcome all the TikTok refugees. And like, we never get to talk to each other. And I don't know. It's like the most wholesome thing. They're teaching us Mandarin. We're teaching them slang and English. We're like,
this is called Let's Go Brandon. Can you say that? Like, no, don't say that. You're teaching them all about the political slang that's out there, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, but it's really I don't know. It's just really wholesome. And I did download Red Note, but I'm not like, I don't speak Mandarin, so I don't know how long I'm going to be there, but they're all just really sweet. I've seen some people on TikTok say that the Chinese government is now separating IP addresses. If you're not in China, you're not seeing other stuff, which is hurting like Chinese people who have left the country and live elsewhere. Huh. But I did research on that, and I actually went to Red Note to figure it out. And people are talking about it that they're not seeing that. And there's Chinese people in China saying, no, we're seeing American stuff. And then Americans saying, no, we're seeing Chinese stuff. So I don't know how true that is, or if that's like an American thing to keep people from being on Red Note. But anyway, I just love the pettiness of US government saying like, no, you're going to tell us we can't have TikTok because the Chinese government owns us. Well, we're just going to like personally mail all of our data to the president of China.
Yes, exactly. I love that. By the way, someone sent this to me as we were recording, that Trump is the one who signed the executive order that would effectively ban TikTok in 2020. So maybe he flip-flopped on this because I know he has expressed support for keeping it. So just putting that out there, that like this whole domino
wanted to ban
was
it.
Initiated by Trump.
He initially wanted to ban it because, oh gosh, I don't remember the details, but there was some rally that he was going to have where it was a free thing to go to, and you just had to claim tickets to get there. And like hundreds of thousands of people on TikTok were like, let's claim the tickets and just not go. So I think he had a pretty low crowd. I don't remember what it was, but since then he didn't like TikTok. But then this election, TikTok, was very much in the right-wing favor as far as the American election went.
Definitely.
So really I think then he's like, actually, I like TikTok. So I don't know. But it is interesting because I've seen both conservatives and progressive people kind of coming together on TikTok to say, like, this is really stupid that the government would take this away from us. Because it is Democrats and Republicans that were for this this bill. So
yeah. 100%.
Yeah, the Trump campaign was trolled. It was an event in Tulsa.
Yes, I remember that story. And this is kind of like a thing that people would do, right? Like either right or left. Yeah. Like, oh, buy the tickets for someone's free event. So it's, yeah, exactly. So, okay, well, that's good to know. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens by this time next week. We could have a whole different story on our hands. But as of right now, TikTok is effectively set to be banned in just a few days this upcoming Sunday. But there is, and I'm thinking about they run Under the Desk News. They seem to get a lot of insider information, and they seem pretty accurate. And what they're saying is there's a very high chance that Biden is going to extend the deadline. So we'll see. We'll see next week if they were right or not. I do also want to cover today the news that a ceasefire deal has kind of been reached. Now, this is really good news. We've been wanting a ceasefire for a long time. We've been covering what's happening with the genocide of the Palestinians since since the October 7th attacks. We've done all kinds of series on it, kind of helping people unpack what's going on behind the scenes. It's been atrocious. It's been a huge blight on the Biden administration as we fund the bombs and the money that are being dropped on children. I think Gaza right now has the most amputee children in any area in the world. Period. Like, that's how bad it is. I mean, tens of thousands of people are dead, civilians, children, etc. It's been quite literally hell on earth. So any announcement of a ceasefire is good.
I think I read too that a majority of the schools and hospitals in Gaza have been hit by bombs.
Oh, I mean, have you seen the pictures? It's like the before and afters are and when we say hell on earth, I mean it. Like, it is a place where fire is not being quenched. It is a place where bombs are raining down on children. Kids are having panic attacks. The overall life expectancy of people has dropped dramatically because of all of the legit PTSD trauma, etc. So they announced a ceasefire deal. Both the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration are taking credit for. I have read that delegates from both parties or from both sides did come together to help make this a reality. However, according to the AP, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that a last-minute crisis with Hamas is delaying the Israeli cabinet's approval of a crucial Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. Although U.S. President Joe Biden and Qatari mediators confirmed the agreement, Netanyahu's comments have created uncertainty. The deal promises the release of scores of hostages in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and includes a temporary halt in fighting aimed at ending the 15-month-long conflict. I would not call it a conflict, by the way. I would call it a genocide. This war, set off by a deadly Hamas attack on Israel in October 2023, has resulted in significant casualties, including over 46,000 Palestinians and 1,200 Israelis. Simultaneously, Israeli bombardment reportedly killed 72 people overnight in Gaza. So even as they announced this deal, Israel is still bombing people in Gaza. Netanyahu faces internal pressure from his far-right coalition, complicating the approval process. Negotiations in Cairo are ongoing, while questions about Gaza's reconstruction and future governance remain unresolved. That's the story. It's not good. It's not good at all. And we've seen this pattern, by the way. We've seen this pattern. Netanyahu and his far-right coalition have been merciless and indiscriminate bombing that has killed, according to this piece, up to 46,000 people. Now, of course, what happened on October 7th was terrible. 1,200 Israelis being killed is absolutely tragic and horrible. And especially us as Christians who believe in nonviolence are certainly going to condemn that 100%. But if you think that, like, the response to that is justifiable by killing 46,000 Palestinians, many of which are children, I just don't know what world you're living in. And we've seen this, right? We've seen right-wing politicians. We've seen people say, well, Hamas, they asked for it. Hamas deserved it. This is what they get. It's unbelievable to watch this. It's tragic.
And also, like, they declared they announced the ceasefire deal had been reached. Palestinians took to the streets and were celebrating. And then overnight, as you said, airstrikes killed at least 77 Palestinians. 21 were children.
Mm.
Like, I don't think when we say 46,000 Palestinians have died, have been killed, I don't think, like, I think we're so desensitized that we just hear a number, but every single one of that 46,000 was a human being with an entire life ahead of them.
That's right.
And many were children who had not even reached a fraction of their potential. Like, I think, the news is so heavy.
Side of them. Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want a really compelling case for Hamas recruitment, killing 46,000 Palestinians, including children, is a great way to do that. Like, this is not going to solve the problem. The same way that when we invaded Iraq, it didn't solve the terrorist issue, right, or terrorism issue. Not at all. Like, these people get more radicalized because it's a human condition. It's a human condition. Right. We had people a few years ago storm our Capitol building based on a lie because they were so resentful. They resorted to violence. Right? Of course, when people get radicalized or feel desperate, they do desperate things. When you're bombing an entire area, when you're flattening out an entire area, and you're killing infrastructure and schools and hospitals and people and mothers and fathers and children, and when you're killing people like that, of course you're going to grow resentment. Of course you are. Of course you're gonna grow a sentiment that says we are not going to take this anymore. And this is the argument that a lot of people make for why Hamas did what they did on October 7th. I'm not justifying what they did, to be very clear. I never ever am going to justify violence, period. But the question we have to ask is, how long can you starve a dog in a cage before the dog does something extreme to free itself? And this is my friend Daniel Bonanora, who's a Christian Palestinian. We've had him on the show many times. People can go find the episodes. But we've talked about this, right? It's not a justification. We're trying to understand how these things happen. And when you look at the, people call it an open air prison in Gaza, Daniel calls it a concentration camp. It's totally cut off. Israel controls who goes in, who goes out. They control the water supply, the electricity supply, the food supply. It's not a good scenario, and land has been being taken more and more since this whole thing started in the I think 40s, and even before that. So there's so much more history here that leads us to this moment, and it's very frustrating to watch your own Christian tradition, in my case, conservative evangelicalism, that taught me that the only biblical perspective is that you always and blindly support Israel, no matter what it does. It's infuriating to watch them justify an ongoing genocide, right? It's
not
funny,
just justify, cheer it on.
Yes, no,
and get giddy about the end times of what this represents for Jesus coming back and the rapture, and
this is why theology matters, right? Because Christian Zionism in America is one of the biggest reasons America has its foreign policy the way it does with Israel. Because there are real people, there are Christian Zionists in America, evangelical leaders who are in government who believe that God has chosen the current nation state of Israel. And if we don't support the nation state of Israel blindly, God will remove his hand of blessing off of America. This is a theological thing that most Americans don't even know about. And that outcome results in 46,000 plus Palestinian, many of them children, being blown to bits. And these Christians who are called to love all of their neighbors, who are called to love their enemies, who are called to take care of the orphan and the widow, instead say, well, that, the theology though, God blesses Israel. So whatever they do, they're all good. And it's interesting because people often wonder, right? Like we read these stories in the Hebrew Bible about God ordering his people, a very different kind of Israel, not what we're talking about today, to go conquer other nations. There's a story of the Canaanites where essentially God orders the mass genocide of the Canaanites. And we look back and say, who would do such a thing? And then we look at Palestine and we go, well, they're using human shields. Well, Hamas started it. This is how you do it. You create, legitimizing narratives that give you a permission structure to justify the ongoing genocide of a people group that you're watching in real time. And it's just unbelievable to watch.
And two things can be true. Hamas is not good. Like, Hamas has done bad things.
Totally.
But that does not justify what Israel is doing to thousands and thousands, and has done to thousands of innocent Palestinians.
Right. And like I said, it's not going to solve the problem. Well, it might for Israel. I mean, Netanyahu I think is hell-bent on taking over the entire region and just eradicating Palestinian people, period. But as far as people who are saying we need peace, bombing does not solve that thing. You don't create peace you don't fight fire with more fire, right? No one is thinking in LA right now, hey, if we just added more fire to this, it's going to solve the problem. No, you need the antidote. You need water. And violence only begets more violence. We're only going to see escalation because all of these kids who are growing up without parents are going to become radicalized because of what those people did to them. And it's understandable, right? I mean, the example I use is that if my town was completely surrounded and an enemy force that was not here when I was here or when my family was here took over and cut off my water and my food and then was bombing everyone and killed my parents, I'd be freaking resentful of that. Of course. So it's difficult to watch. And I don't think... And
it makes sense that you would join the one group that's saying they're the bad guys because from everything you've seen, they are definitely the bad guys.
Exactly. So we're keeping an eye on this, friends. I hope and truly pray that like this ceasefire deal goes into effect, that Israel stops bombing civilians. Because I'll tell you right now, Hamas is not bombing Israelis. Okay, that's not what's happening. Israel is bombing Gaza.
I think a lot of the American Christian support of Israel too, outside of just the biblical basis, is also based in Islamophobia.
Yeah.
And this hatred of Muslims. So, but if you look at the death toll, Israel versus Palestine, one side is clearly done worse.
Yeah, it's not even a question. And also, Palestine has no actual military. Like, there's no funding. This is not the conversation for that. We can cover this in more detail, and we already have. But if you look at just the straight up numbers, this is not a war. Okay, one side has pea shooters, the other one has 2,000-pound bombs. It's not. It's a false equivocation. But we are watching, friends, how this is going to play out. We are desperately hoping that this ceasefire sticks. We saw the videos of kids in Palestine celebrating and jumping up and down for joy. It's heartbreaking, right? And so we want this to be a thing. We all are rooting for this to happen. We don't want more violence, and we'll keep you guys apprised of it next week and see where we're at. But hopefully, not one more life in Israel or Palestine is lost, and we have actual ceasefires. A ceasefire agreement that goes into effect. So
I agree with that. That what's happening in Israel is not the only world event that has Christians giddy about the end times.
Are we going there?
We're going there.
Let's do it.
The fires in Los Angeles. I don't know if you've seen them, but I've seen a bunch.
I have seen a few.
Posts.
I've been trying to shield myself a little bit, but you pulled one for us.
I did pull one for us. So there's a lot of people that are saying the fires in LA are God's wrath.
It's unbelievable.
For Hollywood, for being celebrities, because they think they're liberals. Literally, I've seen people say it's because they're liberal, which is... We'll get to why that's ridiculous. So this guy's named Chris Campbell. He's got a decent following on TikTok. He posted, I edited it together because it was like 10 minutes long by itself. This is 2 videos together. He is I guess like an end times enthusiast. And he just says like a man of God. I don't think he's a pastor, but he makes Christian content.
He has pastor vibes.
He does have pastor vibes. I tried doing some research though. I didn't see any type of church affiliation or any sort of theology degree, anything like that. He didn't say he was a pastor. And usually if you're a pastor, you have that in your bio.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this
man
guy
of God, preacher of the word, father, family of 4.
But collectively between his 2 videos, one had like almost 9 million views, and then one had like several 100,000 views. And it was full of comments of people agreeing with him. So I kind of combined On TikTok, yeah.
Okay.
So I combined a couple of the clips, the 2 clips together, and then I edited a bunch of it out. The stuff I edited out was him going into details of Revelation and the trumpets and all that stuff.
Geez, okay.
So if you just want to watch it.
We don't want to trigger half the audience.
I know. No, it's like, you don't need to know it. You don't need to hear it.
So we'll play this clip through all the way. This is a 2-minute clip that April edited down from a longer clip. Here's just a taste of what's been talked about in this end time Christian nationalist ethos. Here we go.
Yesterday, I posted a video on how I believe that LA fires are a result of God's wrath in the aftermath of the Golden Globes blasphemy.
And the acceptance speeches have been on fire. Who got shouted out the most? Let's look at the numbers. All right, cast and crew are leading the way with 11 mentions. Moms are holding strong with 3 shout-outs. God, creator of the universe, 0 mentions. And Mario Lopez, host of Access Hollywood, 1. All right. No surprise in this godless town.
My heart goes out to those.
Okay, I'm pausing.
He's not the only one that have said that the fires were a direct result of that joke that Nikki Glaser made. So we should have clarified. Nikki Glaser hosted the Golden Globes. That's the joke that they say pissed God off so much that he sent fire to Los Angeles 2 days later.
And killed 25 people so far, destroyed more than 12,000 structures, and charred more than 60 square miles.
Yeah.
What a petty God.
And honestly, that joke, like, clearly that's a joke. Like,
clearly, that's the point.
I don't think that's mocking, like, like, and honestly, and I swear that's
unreal.
Christians just don't have a sense of humor at all. And we can be so sensitive. Like, just look at how we reacted to the Olympics opening ceremony too. We were like, they're making fun of God. Like, not everything is about us. And her saying us, like, oh, in this godless town, like, clearly that is a joke. And that's a play
the stereotype.
Of the stereotype that people say about Hollywood.
And so this bro goes on camera seriously and says, God heard that, and now he's scorching the earth. He's scorching LA, which, by the way, as far as I know, as of this recording, Hollywood has not been yet affected, and probably I don't think will be. So if that was the case, if God was here to smite Hollywood, isn't he like missing the general area?
Yes.
Like
he doesn't have very good aim.
Like,
apparently.
Should we keep going?
Anyway, just continue. Just let's watch the guy play out, and then I know this is gonna fire you up. This is gonna make you mad.
Right. Fire me. Here we go.
Okay.
Down.
My heart goes out to those affected. This is a terrible tragedy going on, but I can't help but to think that this is a precursor of what's to come. God is a loving God. He's patient and quick to forgive. But the stone-walled hearts of this world, especially in areas like Los Angeles, I believe has God to his boiling point. Now again, what's going on in LA is just a small precursor of what's to come. Multiply this devastation hundreds, maybe even thousands of times, and that's what just this first trumpet is going to bring down on earth. California is having unprecedented winds at the same time as these wildfires, spreading them at an uncontrollable rate. You cannot convince me that God does not have his hand in this. The bad news is, when you read Revelation, we know that this world is headed for complete destruction.
Oh my God.
I believe we are in the last days right now. But the good news is that with Jesus, we have nothing to worry about. I'm excited about what's going on.
Oh my
I don't
God.
like the suffering and the evil. My heart breaks for that and those affected. But I get excited knowing that we are going to be with Jesus soon. You should feel the exact same way.
April, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you ever hear this and go, how did I kind of believe some of this stuff?
Yeah. No, and I did.
But I mean, I was not a rapture guy because I grew up a little bit differently in the evangelical world. But as far as like God having his hand on things and like, you know, I'm saved by Jesus and I have nothing to worry about. I mean, I believed a lot of that. And I look at this guy and I'm like, bro, and I don't want to dehumanize this guy, but like you sound mentally unwell. Like maybe we should get you checked out, because how do you actually think that what you're saying makes sense on any level? It's unbelievable.
But this is the same, the giddiness. The giddiness.
I'm excited. What?
Right. Like, oh, we're in it. And to be fair, people have said we are in the end times since the rapture became a mainstream belief in American Christianity in the 1800s. Like we've all it's been, Jesus has had an imminent return forever. Like
we've covered that on the show. Like a year ago, Paul Harvey, or not Paul Harvey, but other people like Paul Harvey all predicted the end of the world, like so many times.
You remember that
book? By the way,
88 reasons the rapture will happen in 1988.
I mean, it is, how does someone go on camera and say this stuff and think I'm being so loving right now? I'm excited for what's going on. Oh, I don't like the suffering. Yeah, you do, because you're excited by the fact that you think that your God is torching LA because of a joke, and that's going to usher in the end times.
I know.
What kind of God is so patient and loving and then snaps and goes off the handle off of a stupid joke and kills 25 people and torches 60 acres, causing billions of dollars in damage? People have lost their homes. They've lost their pets.
They've lost everything.
But don't worry, April. God is good and patient and just until he isn't. And then you're really in it. I mean, that's like an abusive father, right? Could you imagine if my kids were like, our dad is so patient and loving until he snaps and beats us? It's like, well, your dad's not patient or loving then. Like, hello?
I know. That's not unconditional love. That is very much conditional.
Jeez Louise. I mean, this dude
and
is...
Not to mention, I'm sure there's some crossover of people who said that the Democrats were controlling the weather when it came to hurricanes when it was happening to red states. But when it happens to blue states, it's God's wrath.
100%. And that's because the deeper belief here, because of right-wing media ecosystems and Christian nationalism, is that liberal states, especially certain cities, right, like Chicago, LA, Philly, they're just so morally depraved, way more than any cities in any of the red states are. Right. And first off, how do you measure that? Makes absolutely no sense. There's this stereotype in evangelical Christianity that LA and Hollywood is like the center of evil. Like this is where so much evil comes out because of media and movies. Now, of course, whenever there's a Hollywood celebrity who is like them, they cheer that person on, right? I mean, Mel Gibson is cheered on in those spaces. Tim Allen's more conservative. He's cheered on in those spaces. So it's not really about Hollywood or even making movies. It's about them being more progressive or more liberal than how they are. And therefore, they're more evil and depraved, and therefore God is going to judge them by torching them because God loves them so much, April, and is so patient, until he isn't, because a joke was said at the Golden Globes, and now he's raining down fire.
Also, let's say God does judge us. Maybe God does send some sort of wrath with fire.
I'll play along.
Let's just play along for a second. You know, we've got the story of Sodom, right?
Yes.
We have made God in our image so much. He hates the same people we hate. He's politically on our side for whatever reason. And gosh, we just put God in such a small box that we have not, these Christians who are saying that it was God's wrath that caused the fires in LA, never once thought that maybe God would send wrath because of us sending bombs to Israel to kill innocent children in Palestine, or the fact that we're not welcoming the immigrants. Like literally. Let's go to the Bible for a second. We get accused we don't bring the Bible in enough. Ezekiel says what the sin of Sodom was that made God judge it. Ready? Ezekiel 16:49.
Say it.
50 says, "Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore, I did away with them, as you have seen." They were inhospitable. I think you could say that we as Americans have been a bit inhospitable.
You would think.
I mean, there's one side that is chanting mass deportations at rallies, holding signs.
You know, April, we should go to the Bible for just a minute here. I mean, here's another good passage. The Lord watches over the strangers or the foreigner. He upholds the orphan and the widow, but the way of the wicked he brings to ruin. Oh, here's another one. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Now, I know that Christian nationalists love the Levitical law when it comes to gay people, right? They love to quote what's in Leviticus. So Leviticus 19:34, the alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Why aren't those verses paraded around, right? Because you're right. If we're going to play the game of God brings wrath on nations that don't follow him, and by that you mean don't follow what God has written in the Bible, then if that's the case, God's probably judging us because we don't welcome the foreigner, because we have rich billionaires who are exploiting the working class. That's James 5, right? Because we don't really give a shit about the orphan or the widow, especially when it comes to their affordable health care. We don't even care about the single mother and if she gets health care or not for her and her children.
Or how about how we have idol worshipped a serial adulterer who is a literal convicted felon, and we've made him an image of God, like he's God's chosen, and reelected him despite him being, I can't dehumanize, a terrible person.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, there are books called Donald Trump, the Messiah. I mean, I have them here. I can try and pull them. We have the books, friends. So maybe if we violate the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me, maybe that's why God's sending wrath. But no, April, that's not why. The reason why God is doing this is because of a joke.
And because of people who play pretend for a living. And for the record, I'm not, like, there's some shady things that go on in Hollywood. I'm not.
Oh, for sure. Of course.
I'm not like, woo, love Hollywood. They're the best. But to say that God would judge all those people who are, I bet a majority of those people have nothing to do with Hollywood. That God would just judge the people that didn't do, the crime. So it's so frustrating.
Because it's not about the claim that here's the claim, right? The claim you're taught in these spaces, and we know this, we believe this, we were taught this, is that we are biblical. We care about the truth of God's word. Whatever the Bible says, we're going to do. And then what you realize, right, is that you're actually you were taught that as propaganda to justify bigotry, xenophobia, racism, homophobia, etc. Right? What you were given were a few select verses ripped out of their context and rearranged to give you some kind of mosaic image that the Bible actually doesn't want. Or doesn't like immigrants, that the Bible loves people who are rich and wealthy. The Bible loves bullies like Trump. Oh, no, guys, God is all about people who want to stick it to the little guy. God is all about the poor people who don't work hard enough because they deserve it. They deserve to be poor. That's what you're taught. And then you actually start reading the damn thing and you go, wait a second. There are so many passages that are critiquing the rich and the powerful and commanding us to welcome the immigrant. So not that, for the record, I wouldn't even appeal to those verses necessarily as a nation, we have to do A, B, C, or D. That isn't my point. My point is that the people who claim that we should institute biblical law in America can't even read the dang Bible straight. Because if they were doing that, their policies would be not open borders, but a reformed immigration system that would want to keep the immigrant in the country who's here, right? Because we want to protect them and we have an obligation to welcome them. If they actually cared about the Bible, they would take James 5 seriously, which says, woe to you rich people who oppressed your workers for unfair wages. You fatten yourself up like a calf for the day of slaughter. So you would probably want to institute some kind of parameters so ultra-rich people couldn't exploit their workers. But that's not the reality, is it, April? No, it's not. Instead, what we're taught is that God likes billionaires. God really cares about the fact that we have more guns than people, and he wants it to stay that way. I mean, dude, if we're going to... Last thing, then I'll stop ranting. If we're going to get real biblical, and I'm not saying this is for the country, the Bible does not support free speech. James tells us to rein in the tongue. The Bible tells us, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. That is not a free speech policy. I'm just saying, if you want to be consistent with what you're claiming that you believe, you would not be advocating for free speech in America. Obviously, I support free speech. I get that because I'm not a Christian nationalist. But I'm just trying to point out the inconsistencies of their own dogma. The math doesn't math unless the rubric is what gives us more power and more control every step of the way. Once you see that everything through that lens, then all of this makes sense.
It's just a complete lack of self-reflection. Like American Christians have made us the main character of the Bible when we're not even an extra. Like America's not mentioned at all. And the people where it says there's an eagle, I've seen people be like, when it says the eagle is talking about America because the bald eagles are like, no, that does not mean America. It's talking about an eagle.
Interpretation ever.
I know.
Horrible.
Like we're not there.
Speaking of Christian nationalism and things that just make you want to pull your hair out. Let's talk about Pete Hegseth again, because Pete went through his confirmation hearing this past week.
Yep, I got lots of clips.
You do. And I pulled one too. I don't know how many we should go through, but I want to, where do we even start? So Pete Hegseth, friends, one of the things that you need to know is that Pete Hegseth is a Christian nationalist. He has crusader tattoos on him. He is part of Doug Wilson's church network. He goes to a very small church. One of the people there is named Joshua Hames. Look him up on Twitter if you want to see what he says. This is very patriarchal Christian nationalist rhetoric, and Pete is underneath all of that. So media and even the Senate isn't really going to call a lot of that out, but we will tell you that it's so dangerous, this ideology, because Christian nationalists like Doug Wilson and Pete believe that they have an obligation as Christians to be in charge, to institute their very narrow fundamentalist belief set over everyone else. This is why, see, here's the thing. One of the critiques that you're going to hear is that Pete doesn't want women in combat roles in the military. But why doesn't he? Now, they'll say, oh, because he's misogynistic. True, but why? Because he believes the Bible and God has ordered creation that way. This is a theological claim, okay? So keep that in mind as we're going through this. Everything he's saying is theologically motivated. And they want Christian nationalists to be in charge, to reorder society in the way that they see fit, which is in a way where men lead and women follow. Men are in charge, women submit. That's the whole name of the game here.
He did say in the hearing, they asked him, will you still allow women to be in combat? And he did say yes, but then they pointed out that that's the first time he said that, because they have a long history of him saying that women should not be in the military.
Do you want to? I have this clip. It's a little bit long. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but let's just start with that. Let's just start with this clip. This is Senator Warren kind of grilling him on this. I'm gonna let it go for a little bit so people kind of get the full context. The hearing was 4 hours, friends, so we're not going to cover obviously all of that, but just listen to this Q&A from Pete and Senator Warren. See what you think. Here we go.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Hegseth, thank you. Thank you for your service. So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print.
So she's quoting him.
So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast,
that's
quote,
recent.
Women shouldn't be in combat at all.
Less than a year ago.
And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
Really quick, that was 10 weeks ago. I straight up am saying we should not have women in combat roles. Keep that in mind.
Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely, because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
No,
standards are what it's always been about,
let's not
Senator.
have this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time.
We'll leave it there, but I think that's an important line of questioning, because what she's saying is that you changed your mind conveniently when you got elected for this position. And so ultimately, and this happens all the time, right, April? I mean, people will say crazy things or have crazy views, then they'll get in front of a confirmation hearing, and then they'll backtrack. No, I don't mean that. That's not what I meant. I'm all about women in leadership. No, he's not. Like, friends, I hope that it's clear. This is a charade. Pete Hegseth goes to a church that is full on. The name of the podcast that he's been on that's from his church is called the Red Pill Reformation. The Red Pill Reformation. Blech. You think this dude in like 30 days changed his deeply held misogynistic and patriarchal views about the role of women in combat? Come on. He did not, of course. And she calls us out, and all he does is deflect. This whole thing, it's a 7-minute clip. You can watch it. He deflects, because he can't own the fact. He can't say, he's such a coward. All these alpha males can't say what they actually mean. He really believes that women are inferior to men and should not be in combat roles in the military. And this is the guy that will become our defense secretary. Are you kidding me? It's wild.
And that's not the only reason that's not the only reason.
That's not the only reason.
That he's terrible. I think the Tim Kaine, I think it's just Tim Kaine Hegseth.
I'll find it.
Tim Kaine, man, he roasted Pete Hegseth. It was just watch it. It was just very, 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 very eye-opening, because yes, just think of how far we've come. Go ahead and just play it. It'll speak for itself.
You got it.
Mr. Hegseth, I'm looking forward to this opportunity to talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged. Fully investigated and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared?
Senator,
how is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges. It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this amazing woman behind me.
You've admitted that you had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual. Isn't that correct?
Anything...
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
Again,
how do you explain your judgment?
Completely false charges against me.
You
fully investigated, and I was completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
So you
talking about a hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge
acknowledge
that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman by whom you had just fathered a child. You have admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath, like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus.
There it is.
He's so slimy. Like there's some people that if I didn't know anything, and maybe this is a little judgy, but if I didn't know anything about Pete Hegseth, he gives off abuser vibes. I just get those vibes. He's like, he looks the part. Let's just say that.
Hold on really quick. I just need to say, like, you know, I appreciate that senator talking about his infidelity and his cheating. It doesn't matter, obviously, to the MAGA crowd. Look at who they platform every day and say is God's anointed, right? The man who cheated on his wives, who is on his third marriage, who was found guilty, felony convictions of concealing money, a hush money that he paid off to an adult film star, found liable in a court of sexual assault. Of course, the fact that Pete Hegseth is a serial adulterer and is also, by the way, they went to settlement, and there's more in the hearing where they unpack that it was really a non-disclosure, and so that where no one had to admit anything. But I would say there's a heavy chance that Pete was also violent towards his partner. Now, I can't prove that, but that's my opinion. And so, but none of that matters in the MAGA world, right? None of that matters from the crowd that wants you to believe that that God's ordained order for the world is one man and one woman for life in a covenantal marriage, and that society must be structured around that, including not allowing gay people to get married. But don't worry, guys. We know that Pete violated that ethic that we hold to, but it's cool. It's cool. It's cool because you know what? He's a Christian now, and he said he was sorry. And so once you say you're sorry, there are no consequences for said actions because grace, grace, grace. It's unreal. In fact, I can play that clip of the other senator that you pulled talking about this exact point.
Mark Wayne. Yes, I was going to say you should go to this guy because this guy Mr.
Mullen.
Mark Wayne Mullen, who's a Republican, comes to Pete Hegseth's defense.
Wait, hold on. Is this guy a Christian? Can someone look this up? What's his name? Mark Wayne?
I think he is. I mean, okay. He's Republican. I'm sure he identifies.
I'll have Cassie look it up while
I'm pretty sure he is because
this.
I think he actually mentions that we're redeemed by God in one of the clips that I pulled.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Don't worry. Another white man coming to his defense.
Or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake.
Okay, by the way, on his website, the first words are Christian, family man, rancher, businessman. So yes, Mr. Mullen is absolutely a Christian. And listen, white bro Christians got to protect white bro Christians. But let's
pull the other clip I have of him real quick.
Okay, I've
got a second one. It's only like 20 seconds, I think.
Is it
Mark
this one?
Wayne? No. It's also by Mark Wayne. Hold on. Mark Wayne Hegseth. Mark Wayne prison.
No, I can't.
Is it what it says in the folder?
Okay, hold on.
It was in the folder.
Hold on, I got your folder here. Don't worry.
I just found this one.
Stall. We can't edit this. It's all live. That's not true. What's it called? Mark Wayne
Prison. Mark Wayne Prison. Hegseth.
I see. Okay, I got it. It's 1:14. All right, here we go. Back to Mr. Mullen.
I've made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
What an admission.
I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why.
Sounds like Stockholm Syndrome.
But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So before I go down this rabbit hole again, tell me something about your wife that you love.
This is pretty funny, actually. Hold on. Wait for it.
She's the smartest, most capable, loving, humble, honest person I've ever met. In addition to being incredibly beautiful.
Smoking hot wife vibes.
Don't forget about your kids.
I'm supposed to talk about my kids?
No, well, she's also the mother.
Oh, an amazing mother.
Yes.
Of our blended family of 7
Brother,
kids.
I'm pulling you
as
along. I'm trying to help you here.
Yeah, I mean, ha.
Imagine admitting that you'd be in prison if your wife didn't love you.
Imagine being at a confirmation hearing where you're going to become the Secretary of Defense and these are the questions you're getting. Hey, can you talk about your wife for me? Tell me how beautiful she is. And your kids too. Your kids. Dude, this is a confirmation
we're family
hearing.
Values.
We're trying to see if this guy has the moral capability, the intelligence, the meritocracy values that he claims to be Secretary of Defense, which brings me to that. I mean, let's just say for sake of this argument, let's say that Mr. Mullen is right. We're all hypocrites. We all do bad things. Let's use his own words. Let's use Pete Hegseth's own words in this hearing that he was big on. Here we go. Listen to this.
The DEI policies of today are not putting meritocracy first. Every single senior officer will be reviewed based on meritocracy. Getting anything that doesn't contribute to meritocracy out of how decisions are made inside the Pentagon, ensuring readiness and meritocracy is front and center.
Okay, so his big thing is meritocracy.
And just real quick, that was edited. Those were just a bunch of clips throughout the hearing that was edited by The Daily Show.
Yes, right. So meritocracy is a real big piece for him, right? We have to bring people in who, based on merit, based on ability and skill set, which is hilarious considering this guy was a Fox News talk show host. And now he's going to become potentially the Secretary of Defense. But I do think that that this clip right here is so good.
Yes, this is the one I was going to say.
Okay, this is what's her name? I can't see it.
Tammy Duckworth. She's a Democrat from Illinois.
Okay, listen to this line of questioning, and it just shows the level of meritocracy that Pete Hegseth has for this role. Remember, Secretary of Defense, like the world's largest military that's all over the world. Keep that in mind. Here we go.
Specific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations, and how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact
No, you
amount of
couldn't,
nations
because
in
you've
that,
not
but I
even
know we have
bothered to
allies
do-
in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work
Okay.
on submarines with them.
Mr.
and data
Hegseth,
transfers
none
with
of those
them.
countries
We
are
have
in
allies
ASEAN.
across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, this is...
There you go. So I love the sigh. That's my favorite. She's like, oh, yeah, Pete doesn't even know like strategic countries or now to be fair, the ASEAN, ASEAN, I didn't know what it was either. But also, I'm not applying for the job of Secretary of Defense, right?
Yeah, it stands for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
Right. Might want to know that, Pete. So it's funny hearing these people talk about meritocracy until it's their dude. And then, well, I don't. I mean, here's another one that I think is really important, and then we can kind of talk about it. This is a really important question of if Pete will follow Trump and execute essentially what would be considered an unlawful order. Hear his response.
Carry out an order from President Trump to seize Greenland, a territory of our NATO ally Denmark, by force, or would you comply with an order to take over the Panama Canal?
Senator, I will emphasize that President Trump received 77 million votes to be the lawful commander-in-chief
We're
of
not
this
talking about
country.
the election. My question is, would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal.
I mean, it's not. Yeah. Look, friends. Let me just spell it out plainly. Trump is looking for his yes men. He's looking for men that will do things that would be maybe immoral, unethical, maybe even illegal. And he doesn't care about meritocracy. He cares about loyalty. Trump cares about yes men being around him, which is why he stacked his cabinet with the most billionaires in history, right? Because billionaires love fellow billionaires. There's no meritocracy going on here. It is simply loyalty tests. And Pete Hegseth is one example of many that we're going to see that will make you just scratch your head thinking, wait, I don't understand. If this is all about meritocracy, Pete, you were a Fox News talk show host. Like, you have no real qualifications to be defense secretary, to be in charge of the world's largest military. But yet you're saying that you want to bring meritocracy standards back to the military as if over the past 20 years we have not maintained the moniker of the world's largest and most lethal army that the universe has ever seen, right? Obviously. But because this guy is patriarchal, because he's a misogynist and also a Christian nationalist, well, his worldview says that women need to be in the home and they should not be in combat sports because they're the weaker vessel. This is what Pete believes. Look up the churches that Pete attends. Like, this is public information. Watch him on the Red Pill Reformation podcast. It's all right there. This guy is motivated by a Christian fundamentalism that says women are protectors. Men are protectors. Men are in charge. Men are the breadwinners. And under the hierarchy of submission, women submit to men. Women submit to men. They submit to their husbands. They are primarily designed for baby making and for cleaning up the home and taking care of the home to support their strong men. That's how he sees this. And this person is put into power because there's probably some behind the scene networks. It could be money related. It could be relationship motivated. I don't know. That made Trump go, that's the guy I got to put in charge of all this. Now, I don't know why. I don't know what the actual driving force is. But no matter what it is, it's not based on meritocracy. There are 300 million Americans right now in this country. You're telling me Pete is the most qualified to run the military? Come on, dude. Come on.
I know.
It's a joke.
And I just put something in the folder for you to pull up because I was like, what are Christian nationalists saying about this?
Oh, this is good. I've seen this. I'll pull it up.
Okay. And the Christian nationalism, to your point, is very anti-women.
Very.
Even the women inside of it, I don't know. I don't think they realize that if Christian nationalists take control in the way that they're pushing for, in the way that Stephen Wolfe writes about in his book, or Andrew Torba in his book, women will be home. Women will lose their rights. Women will not vote. So the Meg Bashams of the world that are pushing, that kind of honestly make fun of their own gender all the time, they will not be chosen just because they're on the side right now.
Yep. Okay, so what are we looking at?
So I didn't know what the Longhouse was. Do you know what the Longhouse is?
No, what is this? So Megan Basham tweeted. God, you say it. You say it. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. Hold on. She wrote, it's a picture of 4 women, 4 Democrats questioning Pete, and then Pete's face is in the middle. It's actually a video, but I just did a screenshot. And she tweeted, for those who have asked me about a definition of the Longhouse, you're looking at it. And the Longhouse, I had to Google it, refers to the remarkable overcorrection of the last 2 generations towards social norms centering feminine needs and feminine methods. Like Megan, without feminism, you don't have a best-selling book.
Exactly. I mean,
you can hate feminism while benefiting from feminism.
The utter, and I mean this, stupidity. The utter stupidity. Like, Megan, you make a living talking about men. You make a living highlighting the so-called liberal drift with people like Andy Stanley, that's a man, or Gavin Ortland, that's a man, or Russell Moore, that's a man. Like, yes, Megan, you're able to do that because of the gains of feminism over the past 20th century, over the 20th century. Like, hello, you buffoon. Like, I'm sorry, this is just like ridiculous. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? But to your point, though, this actually demonstrates exactly what we're saying and what so many people in this space hold, right? Look, I'm being questioned by women. They're beneath me. They're inferior to me. They're not as intelligent as me. They're not as capable as me. I shouldn't be subjected to this as a man. This should be the opposite. I should be the one in charge. This is what Pete believes. This is what many Christian nationalists believe. And I'll end on this note, and then you can take over and say whatever you want about this, but one of my concerns that we've been saying for years now is that it's not about Christian nationalism being popular. It's about them having access to power.
Right.
And we're about to give a bleeding, a Christian nationalist who bleeds Christian nationalism and patriarchy and misogyny and very extreme theology under the Doug Wilson brand. A man who wrote a book essentially downplaying the effects of slavery. Okay? That's Doug Wilson for you. This dude is about to be in charge of our military. So it's not about if it's popular or not. It's about the access it has to power. Christian nationalism cares about power. They don't care about being popular. And that's where we are.
Right. And I do think it is a good reminder that I don't think Megan identifies as a Christian nationalist, but she 100% perpetuates Christian nationalism. Totally. Most people that are Christian nationalists in some way do not call themselves Christian nationalists. I was a Christian nationalist. I thought I was just being a good Christian because of what my echo chamber and my community was saying a good Christian did, like voting Republican. Like 100%. You basically have turned your faith into supporting a political party. And when that party does not line up with scripture, you do all sorts of mental gymnastics to say, oh, well, that doesn't count for today. Or, well, God makes exceptions, like all the way to cherry pick a way to support your political ideology instead of trying to make your political ideology change to support your faith.
Bingo. And this is only the beginning. Trump hasn't even been inaugurated yet.
Right. And we also saw Bondi, who is Attorney General nominated. She had her hearing this week as well. And she could not. They asked her, which we were focusing on Pete Hegseth, but they asked her who won the 2020 election, and she dodged it. She could not say.
Do I have that clip here?
I did actually in the thing. But like, how petty? How can you not just like? They're still pushing the big lie because they appeal to Donald Trump. It's really scary. The yes men that have got these nominations, like especially when you're talking about invading other sovereign countries, and one of the main selling points that Republicans made to vote for Donald Trump this last election was that he was going to stop World War III. No more wars, no new wars. And in this weird plot twist, he's going to actually start World War III by trying to invade all these countries. Now, the one silver lining is Donald Trump does talk a big talk and doesn't always follow through with what he says. So hopefully this is one of those cases. But gosh, it's scary.
What concerns me the most is that Trump and his team were prepared this time. In 2016, it was like whoa, we won. Here we go. Now there's Project 2025. There's a right-wing media ecosystem that's fully in support. There are deep ties to shadow Christian nationalist organizations and money. I mean, I think that's part of why Pete Hegseth got the nomination. I think that there's absolutely, and I know for a fact that there are behind-the-scenes networks happening that you're never going to hear about that are moving people into places of power. And the agreement is, Trump, we got you elected, now get our people in. And Trump's like, okay, here you go. And so I just think we're in for a very tumultuous and dark next 4 years, given the amount of power that we're going to see Christian nationalism take in our political system.
Right. And I was disappointed that, at least from what I saw, and maybe it just fell through the cracks, but I didn't see any questions to Pete Hegseth about his extremism in Christian nationalism and his Crusader tattoo and things that he said in like favor of the Crusades and those types of things. Like, that's important stuff. And I do think there's still this, like, for the most part, media and Democrats are scared to touch Christian nationalism because Christian nationalists say you just hate Christianity. They turn it into persecution of Christianity. But what they're doing is not a true following of the teachings of Jesus. What they're doing is a very politicized faith. And so people are scared to do that because they don't want to come across as hating Christianity because anyway, this is my topic. I could go off on it. Yes,
obviously. I mean, April, this is why you and I do this work, right? Because there's not really a lot of media places that you can find on YouTube or on podcasts that are kind of talking about cultural events and giving you the underpinning of how Christian nationalism is all over it, right? Yeah. Because a lot of people didn't grow up like us. Like, we grew up in that world. We understand it. And so that's why we do this, because I think the angle that we have to offer the world is like, yes, Pete Hegseth is a misogynist. Why? Mm-hmm. What's the theology that he believes about the world, about God, about creation, about order? That really matters here. And if you're not going to talk about it, we absolutely will, because our neighbors need to know how zealous and how radical this way of thinking is. I recommend people go to Twitter and just look at Joshua Hames. Look at his tweets. This is the church that Pete Hegseth goes to.
Yeah.
Okay. Just take a look. I'm not going to do it for you. We covered it before, but just take a look. That's the church. Pete Hegseth, the man who might become the one in charge over the world's largest military. That's the church he goes to. Yeah. So keep that in mind.
I will also say too, there is a built-in belief system just within evangelicalism that God qualifies the called. Mm-hmm. And so they don't look at qualifications. Like I made a tweet this week. I said, Pete Hegseth is qualified to be defense secretary in the same way pastors are qualified to be counselors.
Great tweet.
They're not. Yeah, they're not. But the amount of people on Twitter, X, that came in that were like, actually, no, God, whoever God calls is the most qualified to be a counselor. Like, no.
Can we just examine that really quick? How do you determine who God calls? Obviously, God isn't
coming
down
thing.
Right. God isn't coming down in an audible voice with a physical hand from the sky saying, you. No, we negotiate that by cultural norms, by spiritual norms, by culture, right? So what they're saying is the people that we pick were chosen by God to be in these positions, even if they're not qualified, which, by the way, completely destroys their whole meritocracy bullshit. That's the point. That's what we're going to keep pointing out over and over, is how none of this actually adds up logically. It's not about meritocracy. It's about who we think should be in power, even if they're not qualified. And when they're not, we justify it with some kind of like little evangelical quip. Ugh.
I know.
It's aggravating.
And then it also just goes into the whole problem of people weaponizing the verse that says, do not touch God's anointed.
Right.
So
right.
then that's how you get people that abuse their power and abuse people. And let me just tell you, pastoral counseling, what church I used to go to, there was a young married couple and the wife was in the military and she was getting deployed to another state. And that pastor counseled that young man to stay at the church because they really needed him. He was a volunteer. He's a youth leader. They're like, you should stay here. The church really needs you. Like, God's calling you here. So he listened. He stayed at the church while his wife went away. Like, and it was like one state over. It was like Virginia, North Carolina. And of course, they ended up getting divorced. And that's like mild compared to some of the more egregious counsel that pastors have given.
I agree. Totally. Well, what a show. A lot going on in the world. We are going to keep you all apprised, of course. We'll be back here next week, next Friday, dropping another episode, seeing what's up with TikTok. Hopefully the ceasefire goes into place, etc. What's up?
Real quick, can we end on something funny?
Sure.
There's a tweet. It says tweet in all caps in the folder. There was a guy that was in the Hegseth hearing that was questioning Pete. He was Republican. He had a whole poster on how DEI does not belong in the military. Because also Republicans are saying that how the LA fires happened because of DEI, which is so stupid.
So stupid.
But I just thought this was really funny. There's a picture. He had a poster.
Here you go. So
here it says DEI out of. And then it says military.
In our military.
Yeah, DEI in our military. So it's all about how they don't want DEI in the military. But they misspelled military. Military. Maybe if you enforce some DEI, you could have spelled military correctly.
Jeez, it's just so dumb. I mean, I wish we didn't have to talk about it. I wish that this was just some fringe ideology in the dark corners of the internet, but instead it's front and center because people like Elon Musk, billionaires are talking about it. Right-wing media ecosystems amplify it. And the result is this. The result is Pete Hegseth potentially being nominated and confirmed as the Secretary of Defense. Like these things have real consequences. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Well, on that happy note, thanks so much for joining us. It means the world. We'll talk to you all soon. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.